Learn how to draw a pastel chalk Christmas winter scene with this step-by-step art tutorial for kids. Kids of all skill levels can create something beautiful on their first try. Plus, this pretty scene makes a lovely card or gift. You don't need a lot of supplies. You could use construction paper in a blue color or pastel paper, and that's what I'll be using, and I'll be using it in this blue color. And you'll also need some pastel chalks. You don't need a large set. Mine are pretty dirty. I use them a lot. You'll only need a few colors. I'm going to put down some wax paper so that I protect my work surface, because these chalks put off a dust and this will catch some of it. You could use newspaper or something else underneath as well. I love using chalks. They are so much fun, but they do smudge, so you'll want to keep your hand from rubbing over the surface of the paper while you're working, best that you can. You can place your paper either in the portrait style, which is up and down, or the landscape style, which is side to side. I'm going to do mine in the landscape direction, and we're going to make this into a winter scene. So we have the blue background already, but I'm going to use a little bit of dark blue to make it have a dark winter night look. So I'm going to use some of my darker blue, and I'm going to add it kind of around the outside edge to give it kind of a night sky look. And I'm going to leave the bottom edge without any darker chalk because I'm going to add white for snow down below. I lay my chalk over on the side and kind of drag it over the paper. Just a light coating. And then you can use your finger to kind of smudge it into the paper. And then I'm going to use a damp paper towel to kind of wipe my finger off a little bit. Next, we're going to add some snow to the bottom edge. So I'm going to pick up my white chalk, which is getting kind of small, and I'm going to make a snowdrift at the bottom of the paper. So again, I'm going to put my chalk on its side and rub. I'm going to make this have kind of a little bit of a rolling top edge so it's not just flat. I'm going to go ahead and smudge this in a little bit, blend it in to the paper. You can see that chalk dust coming off. I'm going to rub it off to the side a little bit. I like the way that looks. Next, we're going to draw some trees that come up, and there's going to be a trunk in the center. I'll make 3 trees, I think. Let's try drawing trees on a practice piece of paper first. So I wanted to show you a practice tree by drawing a straight trunk, and that goes out slightly on the bottom to look like the roots that go into the ground. Then we're going to draw the first set of branches that come out. These are going to be the largest of the branches that come out kind of like the fingers on my hand. And I'm going to do 5 or 6 of them and see how they come out from the top. Then from the top of those, again, we're going to branch off, but they're going to be smaller yet. So I'm drawing with the point up as close to a point as I have on my pastel chalk, and they get smaller. And they can be different lengths. Out of each of those, we get even smaller little branches, and they're going to cross over each other. And you do 1 or 2 or 3 out of each branch. And I don't set my hand on the paper. I'm holding my hand up, and I think that looks very much like a tree that has dropped all of its leaves. Rats, my camera didn't get started for the trunk and the larger branches, but draw those in for 3 trees. Now, before I go on, I'm going to add a few stars into the sky. Now, to make a star, we make a little teepee shape that goes up and down, And then from the bottom of this one, I go straight across the center of that line. I come back across the center of this line, and then I connect to my first line. And I fill it in. And I'm going to make several of these. Up, down, across, across, and down. And I'm making this with the point or the top edge of my pastel. Not going to make a lot of them, but just a few, showing up in the nighttime sky. You may want to practice making your stars on another piece of paper before you do it on your tree drawing. There we go. And I'm even going to go over those with a little bit of white in the center, kind of making a little bit of a cross in the center, a little crossed line just to give it some glowy look. Now I'm going to go back and I'm actually going to make even some more smaller branches off of the smallest of these branches. So the trunk is the largest or the widest line. These branches are the next widest line. Out of each of those, we get even smaller little branches, and they're going to cross over each other. And you do 1 or 2 or 3 out of each branch. So we have our winter scene with our white trees against the blue, darker background with some stars. And it's snowing out. So we're going to make just some small white dots. I was going to point out that I am holding my drawing down over here very carefully right on the edge so that I don't smudge it too much, but it stays in place. So our drawing is almost finished. It's gone pretty quickly, hasn't it? And the last thing I'm going to do is to draw a couple little red birds in the tree. So I'm going to take my red chalk, and you may want to practice this on another sheet before you do it on your drawing. And I was going to show you about drawing these birds on here. I'm going to draw one up here first. And I'm going to draw it much larger than we're going to do on our tree. But a bird has a round circle head and an oval body and kind of a line that comes up as a tail. And since this is a cardinal, we'll make it have a little bit of a peak on its head with a little black on its face here. And using again the tip of our chalk to make a little beak and a couple little legs, just bent lines like that. But we're going to make them very small to be here on our drawing. So it's going to be a very small circle, a small oval, a small line, just to give the look. And then we're going to use a little piece of paper to kind of make that work together, and there we have a little tiny bird. So if it's too difficult to make these little detailed birds with the pastel chalk, you can use your pencils, your colored pencils to make them, and just do the same thing with a small circle, an oval, and a line, and make the little point on the head, and then use your black pencil to make your legs, and your yellow pencil for your beak. And that's fine too. Then we'll just call it a mixed media picture. So practice a couple times and then see which one you want to do. But I think I'm going to put a red bird up in one tree and then maybe 1 or 2 on the ground, like they're finding food down there. So a red bird's going to be very small, and we're going to draw it by making a small red dot, which is going to be its head, and a little oval, that's its body, and a little line coming out to be its tail. And then with our black chalk, we're going to make a small area on the front and a couple little legs, small lines, and we're going to need to make a beak. Okay, so down here we're going to make, I'll make 2 down here. Here's a circle and an oval, and a little tail coming up. I'm going to try to find an area that's pretty squared off on my chalk. And a second little one that's right here, and he'll be pecking down on the ground. A little oval with a circle and a little tail coming up. Have to blow away the chalk dust. And then the little black chalk, I'll make a little line on the front of its face, a couple little legs, and a tiny little beak. Again, you might want to practice those on another piece of paper. I'm going to make just a few little dots down here with my chalk to make it look like there's a little bit of seed for these birds. And that adds a little spot of color amongst all of that blue. So we have the little red and the yellow. Now I can't smudge these tiny birds with my finger because it's going to make it the chalk go everywhere. So I just took a little piece of paper towel and just rolled it into a little point. And I'm just going to barely rub it on their body and their tail. Okay, so that's probably the hardest part of the whole picture, is those little tiny birds. And I'm going to roll another point, and I'm going to do just a little bit on my stars here, just to make them have just a little bit of blending. Tiny, tiny bit, just with the point. Okay, and there we have it. I hope you liked learning how to draw a pastel chalk Christmas winter scene. Isn't it beautiful, even on your first try? I think your Nana would love getting it as a gift for Christmas. For more great craft ideas, come on over to welcometananas.com and join the fun.